Welcome, Wrestling Fanatics, to 360 Wrestling Fanatic, episode 649. I am Lance Brock. Thank you for tuning in tonight, wherever you may be in the world right now. And actually, this episode of the podcast was originally going to be last night, but the reason that is tonight instead was last night with Double or Nothing, and then the post media scrum with Tony Khan after, and watching Battleground right after that. By the time I was done watching both shows last night, was very late, and to be honest, didn't quite feel like doing the podcast at that time. Was a little tired, so I just thought I'll wait for tomorrow and talk about the shows from yesterday, and also talk about tonight's Raw as well. So here we are, right here, Monday night. Thank you for tuning in. Today, obviously, Memorial Day here in the United States. Hope everyone had a happy and safe Memorial Day holiday. And also, before I get into tonight's episode of the podcast, not wrestling, but I do want to mention, since last Thursday's episode of Anything Goes was about Duck Dynasty, I just want to say rest in peace, Phil Robertson, the Duck Commander. Unfortunately, has passed away for a while now, has been battling Alzheimer's and a rare blood disease. Very unfortunate. And not to change the subject too much, but this Sunday, the first episode of Duck Dynasty, The Revival, on A&E. And now, let's get into tonight's podcast. And the first show going to be talking about is TNA Border Brawl. And this was a first time show for TNA, and it's on a new streaming thing called Zonify, which don't know a whole lot about it just yet, but so far it appears to be one of the free streaming platforms, like a Pluto or a Tubi, or like how Sling has the free streams that you can watch anytime, different sports, different things like that airing on there. So I guess they must have struck a deal with TNA, and they air the show on there as an exclusive. And this show, Border Brawl, was live from Niagara Falls at the Convention Center. And it is Canada versus the United States. Just gonna go through it a little quick here. And we have Sami Callihan representing the U.S., defeating William Trudeau. And not Rosemary in this next match, but we have Courtney Rush representing Canada, defeating Victoria Crawford. The System, Moose and JDC defeat Channing Decker and Jesse Bieber. And also on this match, Barbie Blank, the former Kelly Kelly, joined Tom Hannafin and Matthew Raywalt on commentary. Forgot to mention that Barbie Blank actually made her TNA debut on Border Brawl yesterday. And then we had a hardcore match with Tommy Dreamer defeating Champagne Singh, which I know this kind of was more just as a one-off show, kind of, because Friday night, which I talked about here on 360 Wrestling Fanatic, Under Siege on TNA Plus, was when Champagne Singh made his return to TNA, and he came back as a babyface, going against Mustafa Ali. And then just a couple days later, he's back to being a heel once again. But like I said, this was more kind of a one-off, kind of like they used to have back in the day, TNA. They had those monthly pay-per-views, one-night onlys, where they would air them on Friday nights. They would tape them in advance. And it's kind of like that, just kind of like away a little bit from the current storylines. But still, pretty good match here. Tommy Dreamer gained the win. And Frankie Kazarian defeats Cody Deaner. And that's another thing. Under Siege Friday night, Cody Deaner losing. And then that's supposed to be the end of his career in TNA. But then he's back here Sunday, just 2 days later. And again, to get back to it, like I said, kind of separate from storyline kind of show for TNA. So I will excuse that and kind of just let it slide a little bit, I guess you could say. And also, we have tag team action with the Northern Armory defeating the System. Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards representing the System in that tag match. And we have Viperous replacing Tessa Blanchard, defeating Jody Threat. And actually, I saw something today that said Tessa Blanchard may have suffered a concussion, being the reason why she did not compete last night, or yesterday afternoon, I should say. And then we have Eric Young defeating Matt Hardy. And we even have a flag match with the TNA Director of Authority, Santino Marella, and the one-in-man, Nick Nemeth. And to kind of get back to it again, lately, Santino Marella, just the Director of Authority for TNA, has not been competing in TNA anyway. He wrestles on the indies, but not really wrestling for TNA, but like I said, separate from storyline kind of thing we have here. And then we get the system, and then Matt Hardy, Tommy Dreamer, Jody Threat, Cody Neener, they come out. And then we have an 8-man tag or 8-person tag team match. Matt Hardy, Tommy Dreamer, Jody Threat, Cody Neener, and Santino Marella defeating the system. And that was yesterday's TNA Border Brawl. And to be honest, this was my first time watching Zonify until TNA announced this show. I never even heard of it. I'm guessing it's new, a new streaming, free stream thing. But just watching the live show yesterday, I didn't have any issues. Of course, it being one of the free services, there is ads, but that's not too bad, especially if it's free. And I haven't checked it out since yesterday, because yesterday I got home. That was on in the afternoon, watched that, then went right into Double or Nothing. So haven't had a chance to really check out Zonify just yet. But I'm guessing they might have the TNA channel that's on 24/7, like some of the other free streaming things. They have the TNA channel. They might have that. I'll have to check that out. And now on to last night, AEW Double or Nothing, live from Glendale, Arizona at the Desert Diamond Arena. Our commentators for the pay-per-view, Excalibur, Taz, and Tony Schiavone. Let's get right into it. Our first match of the pay-per-view is the finals of the Women's Owen Hart Foundation Cup Tournament. And we have Mercedes Moné taking on Jamie Hayter. And let me just say this right off the bat, match of the night candidate. Mercedes Moné, Jamie Hayter, you would expect that to be a good quality pro wrestling match with those two in there. But in my opinion, it definitely over delivered. It was, in my opinion, just an awesome match. These two, great effort from both of them. Fantastic wrestling match between these two. There were definitely a couple spots where it could have gone either way, or at least looked like it could have. Looked like Jamie Hayter could have easily gotten the victory a couple times. But in the end, Mercedes Moné gets a roll-up, defeats Jamie Hayter to become the winner of the 2025 Owen Hart Foundation Cup. Once again, very good match. I gotta give this one 4.5 out of 5 ring bells. Great. And like I always say about the match ratings, that is just my opinion. You might agree, you might disagree. Just hope nobody gets too upset about them. But I My rating is 4.5 out of 5 ring bells for this one. Was just very impressed by this match. Both of the superstars in this match as well. Like I talked about on GMWF yesterday, I would have liked to have seen Jamie Hayter get the win in this one, but I was thinking actually that it was gonna be Mercedes Moné, so not really surprised by the result of the match. And next up, tag team action, FTR, Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, along with Stokely halfway, taking on the team of Daniel Garcia and Nigel McGuinness. And this one was a fun match. I thought you have FTR at one point going out and getting in the face of Tony Schiavone like they have been in recent weeks. And Nigel at one point taking Cash Wheeler over there to apologize to Tony Schiavone. But then once he got the control, he went back over there and said that he had his fingers crossed and that he wasn't sorry. And FTR gets the win, though, with Dax Harwood having the sharpshooter locked in. But Daniel Garcia did not give up. He passed out, which is what gave FTR the victory. Good one here. I know there was some talk about possibly Daniel Garcia turning, maybe Nigel McGuinness, maybe even Daddy Magic Matt Menard, who was at ringside for the match, but no turn. Yeah, anyway, who knows if maybe that could happen sometime down the line or could not. Who knows? I do not think we have seen the last match of Nigel McGuinness just yet. Is he going to be a regular wrestler on the roster? No. But I think occasionally that we might see Nigel get back in the ring and work a match from time to time. Like I said, not a full-time wrestler, but I think every once in a while, maybe even on Texas this year, and likely Forbidden Door, which is in London at the O2 Arena this year, could see him maybe get involved, work a match of some kind there. Next up on Double or Nothing, we had the first ever stretcher match in AEW history. It is Ricochet taking on Mark Briscoe. This match, I would say, all right, go back. I know I forget about the rating sometimes, but FTR versus Daniel Garcia and Nigel McGuinness, I'll give 3.5 out of 5 ring bells. Now, on to the stretcher match. Ricochet versus Mark Briscoe. Thought this was a good one. Definitely a bloody one. Mark Briscoe, a bloody mess. Almost looking like a horror movie on his face. And we saw tables involved. We saw the scissors, which Ricochet has used in the past. And good match. Ricochet gets the win, not only putting Mark Briscoe on the stretcher, but then putting them in the ambulance as well to get the win. I'll give this one 4 out of 5 ring bells. Good match. And big fan of Mark Briscoe, but not really surprised with the result. Ricochet getting the win here. And next up, we have, sorry about that, the AEW World Tag Team Championships on the line. The Hurt Syndicate team, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, or did I say the Hurt Business? The Hurt Syndicate, and taking on the Sons of Texas, the Natural Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. I definitely liked how they brought up the fact that both Dustin and Sammy were on the first Double or Nothing pay-per-view in 2019. I thought that was a nice touch to bring that up. And pretty good match. I wouldn't say anything real spectacular, but good match. Her Syndicate, Lashley and Benjamin retaining. 12 minutes, 33 seconds. Benjamin pins Guevara to retain. And also during the match, MJF tries to get involved using the Dynamite Diamond Ring, but they don't want him to. And that doesn't cost the Hurt Syndicate the match, but it did cause a little distraction momentarily. And kind of, I don't know if I would say planting a seed just yet, but a little bit of tension. But things worked out for the Hurt Syndicate. They retained the AEW World Tag Team Championships, which, once again, pretty good match. Next up, the AEW International Championship on the line. The International Champion Kazuchika Okada defending against Speedball Mike Bailey. If you heard yesterday morning's episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans, you heard that I was definitely looking forward to this match, and it didn't disappoint. Awesome match. Speedball and Okada, they delivered. Maybe even over-delivered. Really good match. I was a big fan of this one. Okada getting the win, 16 minutes, 5 seconds. I'll talk more about it at the end of the recap, but I would say, in my opinion anyway, candidate for match of the night. But like I said, I will get back to that a little later on. And also the AEW Women's World Championship on the line. Timeless Toni Storm taking on Mina Shirakawa. Very good match here. Once again, I know I'm just going to spoil it right now. Not a bad match on the show. Every match I thought was at least good or better. And as always, I know I sound like a broken record, but AEW definitely delivers when it comes to pay-per-view. And Double or Nothing tonight was no different, but I'll wait to the end to talk more about that. Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa, really good one. And Toni Storm getting the win to retain. Not really surprised that Storm retained. 15 minutes, 53 seconds. But I definitely would not be surprised if we do see Mina Shirakawa challenge for the Women's World Championship again sometime down the line. And really good match, though. And now it is official at All in Texas. It will be Mercedes Moné taking on Timeless Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. Maybe I am kind of looking too much into it, but since Mercedes Moné is already the TBS champion, could we possibly see a title versus title match? Like I said, just me kind of speculating a little bit, maybe kind of getting a little too excited, looking forward to the match. But who knows? That stipulation could possibly be added to this match at all in Texas. We will just have to wait and see. Anarchy in the Arena. Anarchy in the Arena. Crazy, insane, but in the best way possible. It was pretty much like I said yesterday on GMWF, brawling all over the arena, weapons, blood, unpredictability, uncontrolled chaos, craziness, insanity, all that good stuff. Sorry. And it was, like I said, just all over the place. And once again, as kind of a tradition for Anarchy in the Arena, normally whoever the babyface team, usually whoever is the last to come out, whoever's theme song is playing. For example, Jon Moxley, back when he came out to Wild Thing, they just kept playing that during the match, kind of shades of New Jack in ECW. And tonight, though, we got, well, actually, we did get a little bit of the theme music that the Young Bucks were using last night, coming out as the Founding Fathers 66 years ago, which I thought was pretty entertaining entrance from the Young Bucks, in my opinion. And let's start playing a little bit. Kenny Omega shut that down, though. And then we got I'm So Excited from the Pointer Sisters. If you remember, that was actually the theme song for Dynamite for one night. It was the first episode when Dynamite debuted on Max back in January. And then people online, of course, smart wrestling fans online, they complain, that's not the right song, I don't like it, everybody needs to listen to what I have to say. They complain, so that got changed. And not sure if that was going to be the full-time theme anyway. I wouldn't have minded it, but all the crybaby idiots online that complain about every little thing. Sorry, don't mean to get into that too much, but and hey, that's why I'm lucky barely anybody knows who I am, or if they did, they'd be complaining about me too, but luckily nobody knows who I am, so don't have to worry about that. But they complain about everything, and that played for a while, but then things got a little heavier. Bodies from Drowning Pool. Maybe it's just me, but kind of surprised me at first because I know. Sorry, hit the microphone again. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, I haven't mentioned that yet, but we're also on YouTube besides Spreaker. And I was saying Bodies by Drowning Pool. The reason that it just kind of surprised me a little bit was because, of course, WWE using it in the past, the theme song for SummerSlam 2001, and then ECW using it as the theme song during the Alliance. So, I don't know, maybe it probably really isn't a big deal, but for me, I just kind of thought that. But like I said, this was insane, but in a great way. They did a great job of making Powerhouse Hobbs look like a machine. He was awesome in this match. Same goes for Willow Nightingale. They made her look amazing in this match. Of course, since the two women in the match, Willow Nightingale and Mina Shirakawa mostly stayed together, of course, for most of the part anyway, but at one point, or did I say Mina Shirakawa? Marina Shafir, sorry, old age, but Marina Shafir chaining Willow Nightingale to the ring post by her earring. Crazy. Almost. I know this is exactly the same, but kind of remind me of at one time what Randy Orton did with Jeff Hardy with a screwdriver, put it in there and twisted it. Kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Maybe just me. And I know I'm going back a little bit, but Willow and Marina brawling in the back. Willow breaking a bottle over her head, busting her open. And then Shibata and Wheeler Yuta in the back. And Shibata wrapping his leg with the barbed wire with the knee strike. And also Marina Shafir stapling the tongue of Swerve Strickland. And then Matt Jackson hitting the swanton off the entrance was onto Powerhouse Hobbs, which it looked like he might have hit his head. I know I saw Nick Jackson and Mike Knox go over to him immediately right after that to check on him. And then that looks like going to get the victory there. But then we see Prince Nana with Swerve Strickland on a forklift, comes off, knee strikes, or the stomp to the Young Bucks. But in the end, after all the craziness, after all the insanity, it is, like, what would they be called? I don't think they actually had a name, but Team AEW, maybe you could call them, getting the win. Also, I forgot to mention, of course, the ambulance still by the entrance. And we see Mark Briscoe get involved to help out. And the Death Riders end up getting locked in the ambulance. And the Young Bucks are by themselves in the ring. And they get the win. 35 minutes, 17 seconds. I know, just looking at it, You see a match, 35 minutes. See, whoa, that's long. But watching this one with everything going on, everybody brawling all over the arena, in the back, the ringside area, in the ring, the weapons, all the other craziness going on, that it did not feel like it was that long. Definitely did not drag. It was fast paced, action packed, and I'll give this one, I'd say, 4.5 out of 5 ring bells. In my opinion, definitely one of the better of the Anarchy in the Arenas. But as I talked about on GMWF, I'd say, because usually whether June or July is when they have Blood and Guts. They have not mentioned anything just yet, but would think that they would be having Blood and Guts this year. And the main, or not the main event, but the Don Callis family versus the Paragon. We have, and in the main event, the men's final of the Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament, Hangman Adam Page getting the win, victorious, the winner of the men's 2025 Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament. So it is set now at All In Texas for the AEW World Championship. Jon Moxley defending against Hangman Adam Page. Should be a good one. Of course, you got a good story to tell here with Hangman Adam Page. It's early, but gonna go ahead right now and make a prediction. I see a title change. That's just my opinion, but I could see Hangman Adam Page defeating Jon Moxley for the AEW World title at All In Texas. And also, like I said earlier, we know the Women's World Championship match for All In Texas as well. We are going to see Mercedes Moné taking on Timeless Toni Storm with the AEW World Championship on the line. And like I just said, Hangman versus Mox for the AEW World Championship, which should be a great match there. So overall, as a pay-per-view, like I said, just a little warning here, just my opinion. Don't have to get upset. If you disagree with me, you can disagree with me, but just don't have to get upset or post any nasty comments or messages or anything like that. But I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Great show, in my opinion. As most AEW pay-per-views are, it was very long. But I was not bored at any point. I was not looking at my watch saying, what time is it? I was just would hurry up and end already. Was definitely not saying that at any point. Did not drag at all. Like I said, every match on the card was at least good or better. And also had a hot crowd there in Glendale, Arizona as well. Great show, in my opinion. if you missed it, all I have to say is that I definitely recommend that you go back and check out the replay. You will not regret it. Was just a great show from top to bottom. So either traditional pay-per-view or satellite pay-per-view or ppv.com here in the United States, Amazon Prime Video, and Sling, like I said, which was the way I ordered last night on Sling pay-per-view, or internationally got Triller TV still, and everywhere else except for the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. And now let's get into another show from last night, and that is WWE Battleground, NXT, of course, but live from Tampa, Florida at the Yuengling Center. And our commentators, sorry, just 1 second, let's get a little distracted with my notes here. Vic Joseph and Booker T. And we have Sol Ruka taking on Kalani Jordan for the NXT Women's North American Championship. Ruka retains 12 minutes 59 seconds. And then we have Hank and Tank. And defeating the Calling and Sean Spears in a 6-man tag team match, 9 minutes 26 seconds. Channing Stacks Lorenzo defeats Tony D'Angelo, 15 minutes 14 seconds. At the NXT Women's Championship on the line, Stephanie Vancouver defeats Jordan Gray, 16 minutes 7 seconds. The NXT Championship up for grabs. Oba Femi defends against Miles Bourne, 16 minutes 49 seconds. The main event for Battleground, the TNA World Championship, and it is actually Trick Williams defeating Joe Hendry to become the new TNA World Champion. I have to admit, maybe it's just me, but I was actually a little surprised by this one. Wasn't expecting to see Trick Williams bring the TNA World title over to NXT. Definitely looking forward, interested to see what's going to happen next in this angle between WWE and TNA. Will Joe Hendry get a rematch? Or possibly a Mike Santana? Maybe I'm reading into this a little too much, but I saw on the Instagram post that TNA posted earlier, or was it last night, maybe, about Trick Williams being the new TNA World Champion, and Santana commented not for long. So maybe that's just a little hint that maybe he could be Trick Williams' first challenger for the championship. But I could be wrong. Who knows? Definitely have been wrong in the past. But wouldn't mind seeing Mike Santana versus Trick Williams for the TNA World Championship. And tonight, excuse me, WWE Monday Night Raw, once again from Tampa, Florida, from the Yuengling Center. And on tonight's Raw, just going to go through it real quick. We start off with Paul Heyman, Seth freaking Rollins, and Braun Breaker in the ring. And the newest member of the faction, Big Bronson Reed. And Paul Heyman informs us that CM Punk is not there tonight. Or is he? More on that a little later on. And also tonight on Raw, we had more Money in the Bank qualifying matches taking place for the men and the women. And let's get into tonight's Raw. And our first match of the night, we had Penta getting the win against Dragon Lee and Chad Gable to qualify for the men's Money in the Bank. And it was announced that Chad Gable will be taking on El Hijo del Vikingo at Worlds Collide. Vikingo was in the crowd tonight. Chad Gable ended up going over, getting in his face, and Vikingo got involved. So Penta qualified for the men's Money in the Bank. We have Rusev defeating Akira Tozawa. The WWE Tag Team Championships are defended. The New Day defeat American Made and the War Raiders in a triple threat match. And earlier in the night, we see Roxanne Perez giving Dirty Dominic Mysterio some chicken nuggets in the back. And then it is the return of Liv Morgan. And then Roxanne tries to get involved in this one, help out Liv, and her and I can't think of her name for some reason. They get into it. And that distracts Liv Morgan, and Kairi Sane gets the win. And then in the main event tonight, another men's Money in the Bank qualifying match. Seth Rollins defeats Finn Balor and Sami Zayn. He's in the ring with Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Paul Heyman. CM Punk's music hits, and what happens next was a little predictable. Could tell it was going to happen. His music hit. So Rollins sends Reed and Breaker to the entrance to cut him off, to make sure that he can't get to the ring. But what happens? Punk comes from behind, just as expected, hits Rollins with the GTS, and then runs through the crowd. That was tonight's WWE Monday Night Raw to finish off a Memorial Day weekend with a lot of pro wrestling, but luckily a lot of good, and in some cases, great pro wrestling. And I hope everyone else enjoyed it too. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, episode 649. I appreciate everyone who listens. Remember, you can give me your thoughts and your opinions on all the pro wrestling from this past weekend. Any show you want to talk about, either right here in the comment section on Spreaker or whichever website or app you listen to 360 Wrestling Podcast on, if they have a comment section. And since this episode is streaming live right here on YouTube, in the comment section on YouTube as well, let me know what you thought. Or you can email 360 Wrestling Podcasts at gmail.com, on X at 360 Wrestling Pod. And we're on Blue Sky as well, and Threads, Instagram, all that good stuff. I would say Facebook, but it's not active. Maybe it will be again one day, who knows, but you can still go there to show support. Give it a, is it still like on Facebook? I haven't been on Facebook in, I don't remember how long, so I don't remember how that is. And that is all. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, for 360 Good Morning Wrestling fans. Hope everyone has a great night. And until next time, I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.